Hey everybody, I'm out here with Congressman Ro Khanna, and we just wanted to come and congratulate him and ask him a few questions about the big historic win in the House of Representatives yesterday on Yemen. So, Congressman, first of all, congratulations. This was a great day for peace. I was wondering if you could maybe tell all the folks out there just why this is such an important day.
Well, congratulations to you, Stephen, and to everyone on Win Without War and activists across the country. This is really their victory. They have been mobilizing for the last 3-4 years to stop the war, to stop the humanitarian suffering, and their voice has finally broken through. We had an overwhelming majority yesterday with 20, almost 18 to 20 Republicans joining us to say that we will not be supporting the Saudis in the bombing campaign in Yemen. Here's what's historic. It's the first time since the War Power Act was enacted in 1973 that it's going to pass not just the House, but also the Senate. This is a huge deal in terms of the precedent it's setting for future interventions. The War Powers Act is now alive and well and a tool that can be used to stop these endless wars.
I think that's really important, Congressman. I think one of the things that you and I have talked about, and I've heard you say elsewhere, is the importance of kind of Congress taking back its role on these constitutional issues. I'm wondering if you could just say maybe another word about why it's so important Congress get involved in this and the role that you see kind of the American public playing in that to be.
Well, it's constitutionally important. Congress in Article 1 has power over war and peace, and there's a reason for that. Because our founders, they grew up in a time of monarchy, and they knew that kings would go to war for their own glory, often not in the interests of the public. And so they said we need to vest this power of war and peace not in a single person who may have their own legacy at stake, but in the power of Congress, where they have to represent hundreds of different districts. And only if they can get a consensus of hundreds of different districts would we go to war. They knew getting Congress to sign off would make war much harder to authorize, much more difficult to get engaged in, and that's what they wanted. They didn't want it to be easy to get into war. So returning the power of war and peace to Congress will also inevitably bring greater restraint to our foreign policy. It will be a much higher bar before we intervene in the future.
That's great. And maybe, Congressman, just a word on where your legislation, where the bill to stop the U.S. support for the war in Yemen, where does that go next? What's the next step?
Well, it's our bill, and our bill passed yesterday, and now it goes to the Senate. Bernie Sanders has already passed a version of this in December. I'm confident he, working with Mike Lee and others, will pass it in the Senate, and then it goes to the president's desk. And we were just talking about how do we convince the president to sign it, because the president is withdrawing from Afghanistan, withdrawing from Syria. I don't agree with all the ways he's doing it, but the instinct to withdraw, I think, is correct. But there's no way he can then say, okay, we need to continue to support the Saudis and intervene in Yemen. So I'm going to see if we can get some of the allies of the president to talk to him and say, Mr. President, sign this, get this war over with.
Thank you so much, Congressman. You mentioned earlier the role that the American public and all the activists out there played in this moment. As this fight moves to the Senate, we're going to need that voice. We're going to need the public to continue to partake in this debate. And when we combine that outside pressure, we combine the voice of the American public with members of Congress like Congressman Khanna, we can really do great things, and we can actually truly begin to win without war. So thank you very much, Congressman.
Thank you. Thank you for all your work on this.
Thank you.